Hello and welcome to the last, yes, believe it or not, the last of our Matchbook Greyhound Derby podcast as we look back on the semi-finals of the Star Sports TRC English Greyhound Derby, as well as looking forward to what should be just an epic final at Toaster on Saturday night. As always, I'm joined by the master, Paul Lawrence. It's been an incredible derby, Paul, and in the next sort of 3/4 of an hour or so, we'll be looking back at the semi-finals, talking about the final itself, and I suppose we'll have an overall look at what it's meant and what it has really sort of it's really captured the imagination, is what I'm going to say. Before we do, let's get the hard stuff out of the way. Firstly, remember the Pod 50 promotion is still there. Bet £50 using the code Pod 50, and after you bet that £50, you'll get it back another 50 as free bets. And for those of you that are already subscribed, already with Matchbook, we also have the new Matchbook Track Club. And this is it's an exciting thing to have. We're giving you a chance to place qualifying bets and get rewarded every Friday with two €5 free bets for use on the dogs. All the details are there. Listen, opt in. You place a minimum of £30 on Greyhound bets each week, with one minimum bet of £10, and a back bet is required, and minimum odds of even money 2.0. And if those bets are settled between Monday and Thursday, you'll qualify for two €5 or £5 free bets on a Friday. They'll be rewarded to your account before 12 p.m. Simple as that. It's all there. I would suggest you sign up for that. It's a no-brainer, especially if you are having any bets on Matchbook. Before you know it, you have 30 quid well and truly taken care of. And I'm sure most of you will be having at least one £10 bet. So that's something to look forward to. And who knows, you still have time to get a few bets in. You might use them later on in the week in the Star Sports TRC English Greyhound Derby. PL, a pleasure as always. The Derby well and truly came to life a few weeks ago, but Saturday night was a bit special.
I was, yeah. We kept waxing lyrical about Bockos Diamond, and you knew, yeah, he came to life. And as you say, Graham just took that little bit of weight off of him, and we saw the real Bockos Diamond on Saturday, and that is something to savour. We've got a cracking lineup. I mean, we've got 6 wonderful, brilliantly talented greyhounds, and I think all of them have got a chance to win it. You can say there's any scenario where any one of those greyhounds can win it. And I was praying for Droopy's Plunge to get trap 1, because he was always going to be the outsider. But from trap 1, he's got a chance in. He's got a chance.
He has got a life. There's no question about it. He was a 33-1 chance if he got any other trap. The fact of the matter is, he's only half that price because he got trap 1, and there is an avenue. And we will go down the road of each of the 6 finalists where and how they can win this contest, right? But before we do, let's take a look back at the 2 semi-finals. 2 wonderful heats, of course. The first heat went to the Laddie Da. I'm still not sure how he won PL, but he just showed his pace, his strength. He's a bit of a legend, really, isn't he? Like, he's bidding to become just the 5th greyhound to win a second English Greyhound Derby. And by God, I wouldn't put it past him.
No, he's one of those dogs. I spoke to Liam. Had quite a good chat with Liam yesterday at the Derby lunch, and he's just one of those greyhounds that runs Toaster so well, and he just loves Toaster. And I think we said last week, although he had a tricky enough draw, we said he'll find a way, and boy, did he find a way. He actually came through and won the race, which, I mean, I think it surprised a lot of people. A lot of people were so worried about his draw with Solomio immediately on his inside, and then Droopy's Bookham on his outside. And we can take a look at that later. But he's just got that tenacity, and he runs the bend so well, and that's where he saves ground. He's not an electric early pace dog by any means, but he's just got good all-round pace. He's a good competition dog, and he knows how to win at Toaster.
He sure does. I suppose we had mentioned it a few times last week that the run against Churchfield Sid, he had to wait and wait and wait and wait. And then moving off that last bend, they actually clipped heels. I didn't realize that at the time. It was only afterwards I spotted it. And it was sort of stated the other day and gone to the dogs that may have cost Churchfield Sid. Well, I think that cost the Laddie Da winning by further, because he lost all momentum and then got going again, whereas Churchfield Sid didn't seem to lose any momentum. The other evening, he was just that bit further back going into the third bend, so there was no hesitation. There was no waiting for a gap. He just was allowed to charge fully at Solomio and then just launched his decisive his decisive move on the run in to win by a half length. Behind them, there was plenty of drama. Bombay Pat found a way to qualify. He was on the outside of Slick Sentinel and sort of just took that rival around the outside, around the third and fourth bends. And in turn, by doing that, probably forced Slick Sentinel to sort of just edge inwards on top of Droopy's Bookham, who was desperately lucky not to qualify. But sadly, it was probably caused by Bombay Pat, who made his own luck, So, you feel for the connections of Droopy's Bookham, but the reasons that Bombay Pat is there is because he showed that willing fighting spirit. And all of a sudden, you had 3 Irish-trained qualifiers. Solomeo ran a big race. We spoke of what would happen in the first few yards, but the Laddie-Da didn't get a start. And in essence, Solomeo pinging out like he did was probably the best thing that could happen to Laddie-Da. Now, as it was, the aforementioned Droopy's Bookham started edging into the opening corner, and the Laddie-Da had to show his pace and tenacity around the opening 2 bends just to get loose of that rival. Solomeo setting a blistering gallop out front. He does 28.67. It's up there with one of his best runs in the competition, and I'm sure connections are more than delighted with his performance.
Exactly, and he's a young greyhound, isn't he? So I tried to get a chance to talk to Peter yesterday, but Lloyd Amplet jumped in. I didn't want to sort of jump in on the party, and Peter went, so I didn't get a chance to talk to him, and I wished I had. And I will try and talk to him this week because I've got his number. But Solomeo is a dog that is going forward and he's progressing. He's one of those that's, we always know that the Kirby is a good quality competition, and he was runner-up in it. And he just seems to be probably showing better pace each week, if that makes sense. I do think he wants to be drawn. I would have put a Midlothian again, as I said to you, but I was happier with him to be drawn 2 than 1. Put it that way in the final. I would have preferred him in 3, but I think all things being equal, he'll be all right. But he's just a dog that is going forward, and if you're on the front in the final in a derby, anything could happen. So his chance relies at the start. He's going to need to get inside the wire runners at the first turn, but yeah, he's progressed nicely throughout this competition and handled superbly by Peter and Mikey.
God knows they're due one, aren't they? They've gone so close in the past. Croker's Prince, Kinwall, Bish, Kildare, of course, a dog who we've constantly compared this fellow to. Obviously, he's a half brother. I think this fellow's trappier. I think he's more fluent at boxes than Kildare ever was. Kildare used to pace up very well, but I think this fellow has both. I think he's turned into a trappier greyhound than he certainly looked in Limerick. That's obviously coming with experience. He only has a handful of races, but really like him. Big player in the contest, and if he does hit the lids, just could be interesting to see what happens on the outside, because if he hits the lids, if there's any sort of bump between the outside pair, it could be this fellow going around in front. And if he does, I'll tell you something, he's going to take some catching. And back in third, Bombay Pat, just doing what Bombay Pat does. He didn't get a flyer. He paced up. He had to find himself. He found himself in an awkward position, trying to get around Slick Sentinel around the third and fourth bends, but got there, and he's still there. Another finalist for Papa Muldoon, who had Ballydoyle Valor, who ran up the derby behind Dearjet Sydney a few years back at Nottingham. The 3 that went out, of course, we send our consolation to them, because the fact of the matter is that over the last few weeks they've had an unbelievable journey, and it just to come up one hurdle shy it's a killer.
It was, and what happened around the third and fourth bends, as well as you say, that they kind of had that bit of a coming together when everyone was jostling for a bit of room. I caught Droopy's Bookham in the commentary making ground. I thought, well, he's going to come through here, and he just sort of concertinaed with Slick Sentinel, who had Bombay Pat outside. The 3 of them were all there, and they just kind of squeezed. And as you say, it's testament to Bombay Pat's determination, because I think you probably agree with me. Essentially, Bombay Pat is a front runner. He's a front runner that doesn't start very well as well. So to actually do what he did to get past both Slick Sentinel, who came and picked up Bockos Diamond the week before, and Droopy's Bookham, that had come storming through on many occasions throughout the derby, I think you've got to say well done to Bombay Pat, because he really showed determination to get and put himself in that position.
Yeah. As an Irishman looking at this heat, I was expecting, I was hoping one or two of the Irish would qualify from that heat. I was expecting the three Irish to qualify in the second heat. And, in any other circumstances, they would have. I'm not sure six Irish finalists would have been good for the competition, but I didn't want it to happen in this sense where, like, Dynamic Force is an absolute guaranteed to go round clear third. And if he does, he's not getting picked up. Like, let's be real about that. As it is, Bockos Diamond returned to his very best form on the outside of the track. I just had that feeling all week, just the way they were talking. I didn't sense any stress from Graham Box, who was then relaying what Graham Holland has been saying. I sort of tend to leave them all alone at this stage because so much going on. The last thing they want is some Irish lad ringing them from home going, what's the story? What's the story? So before I kicked on with the 3-1 Bockos for the outright, I remember I just rang Graham Box and said, well, there's a reason why he's 3-1. He said, absolutely spot on. Graham is absolutely delighted when he is going to take a little bit of weight off him. And we saw the results the other evening. The real Bockos Diamond stood up. He broke on terms. It wasn't a flying start, but just that early speed. Like, there's not a greyhound in the world that would lead Cheap Sandwiches as comfortably as he did into the opening corner. Went on to lead by 3-4 lengths, perhaps nearly into the third bend. Holds on by a length and 3 parts. But it's a long length and 3 parts. It's very comfortable. He was just awesome.
He was, and it's funny you should say that. A couple of people said to me, the race car comment was very quick away. Well, it wasn't. He just broke with the field. It's just devastating early. His main weapon is his early pace. But you're quite correct as well in that you've been telling everyone that listens to our podcast that he's got awesome 2 to 3 as well. So when he's in the front, he's actually running away from dogs into the third turn. He's putting up phenomenal splits to the third bend at Toaster, as he did in Shelburne Park as well. But yeah, he just came back to life. Do you know as well? I said this to you that good dogs can adapt to trap draws. And when I said originally they met in the earlier rounds and Bockos was in 5 and Cheap Sandwiches was in 6, and that's what I said, that's the way I would draw them. And to be fair to Graham Holland, he's been saying that Bockos Diamond is a better dog out of trap 6. He doesn't want anything on his outside. And Nicky Holland picks up on it as well. And this shows you they're not too slow, Graham and Nicky. That Cheap Sandwiches stayed in his line in trap 5 in the semis, and Bockos, he actually edged off a little bit, Bockos from 6. But where I said if there's clean daylight for Cheap Sandwiches and Bockos missed it, he would move off. But Nicky was quite right in that's what happened. And I kind of did preempt that as well, to be fair, in the semi review or preview, and they stayed straight. And actually, if you remember, I said to you in his quarterfinals, Cheap Sandwiches, he edged over a little bit earlier than I expected him to, and that happened again. And we can take a look at that later as well. But that made for a perfect race in that respect. In that the form was franked from the Irish Derby final. Kind of similar. What happened is that Bockos Diamond took that length and a quarter out of his kennel mate, and then came across, and then he was away and gone. So if that happens again, then we could see Bockos Diamond as the dual champion.
Yeah, we'll talk about the prices for the final in a few moments, but let's mention Cheap Sandwiches in a second. Again, he ran his heart out. He's only beaten a length and 3 parts behind one of the all-time greats, no question about it. He's been very consistent on the clock. He did 28.65 the other night, 28.67 the previous week, 28.75, 28.65, 28.71. Like, his form is there. Like, we know exactly what he's capable of, what he's going to do. The key is for him, he's going to need Bockos Diamond to miss the kick somewhat. We saw the other evening that he just couldn't contain that rival into the opening corner. The third went to Droopy's Plunge. Obviously, Dynamic Force was going up a clear third. He clipped, he sort of moved in on top of Prince Nassim and took a bump. It wasn't a hefty one, but it was obviously there was a weakness there. And obviously the Hawk went. Thankfully, all reports suggest he's well in himself, eating well looked after on the night. Kevin Hennessy was quick to stress how well Polly looked after him on the vet at Toaster. So he'll have the best of care. My heart goes to his connections. But, Droopy's Plunge still had work to do. He did come through to qualify in third, and we know he's capable of going up that bit better. and that's exactly where he wants to be drawn in trap one. So Cheap Sandwiches and Droopy's Plunge, they fill the frame.
Yeah, and Droopy's Plunge actually, and I didn't think this would happen because I had Prince Nassim on my notes staying straight. Prince Nassim moved off. And he took Plunge's ground straight away. Now, Plunge was going to edge in himself, but he didn't really have a chance to see any clear daylight as soon as he left the boxes. And this is why I said on X at the weekend, I so wanted Plunge to get one in the final because he's done so well to keep qualifying the way he has. I mean, he was awesome when he led round in the opening round. He was awesome, but he's always going to do that. But now he's getting in with quicker dogs to the corner. He's not going to be leading them. But if he gets trap one, he's going to be probably staying best of all. You could probably argue between him and Deladi Dar. But Plunge has he's got himself into the final through obviously a little bit of luck and commiserations to the connections. I told you I've met them all the week before, and they were cock a hoop, and it was a big come down, wasn't it? And it is sad to see a dog sort of exit the derby in those circumstances. But I guess that's racing. Things happen like that, and it was great that Kevin updated us as quickly as he did, because that kind of puts people's minds that love the dogs at rest. But yeah, you can't take away from Droopy's Plunge his determination and his spirit to sort of drive to the line. So yeah, fair play to Patrick and Cheryl and Rhea.
So that leaves us. We're down, believe it or not, to the final six. It's you sort of wonder yourself, where's the last 5 weeks gone? My life is flashing before my eyes. 5 weeks have gone like that, and we're down to the final of the Star Sports TRC English Greyhound Derby at Towcester. It's going to be a huge crowd. A great thanks goes to Gone to the Dogs for keeping us there, basically on site. The presentation has been fantastic. The interviews, the commentaries, the camera angles, everything. The place looks resplendent. The work that's gone into Towcester this year has really worked. This is a derby, and I know Ben Keith, the sponsor, has been speaking about it, but it really has captured the imagination. And all said and done, we lost one or two big names early on, but really, 4 of these finalists were in the top 5, 6 in the betting at the start of the competition. I know I tipped up, obviously we both sort of said Bockos Diamond would be the one to beat. Simple as that. I think we were both with Cheap Sandwiches. I gave Solo Mio a good mention. The only dog I sort of suggested put forward that didn't get anywhere was JT Craze, but I only threw him in because he was a crazy big price. It's been one of those derbies where, yes, there have been shocks along the way, but the cream has generally risen to the top.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah, we lost Proper Heiress, didn't we? Which kind of took the shine off of the English challenge to a certain extent, which was obviously Mike Davis owns as well, and the champion trainer over here, Mark Wallace. So that was a bit of a disappointment. But as you said, the fact that you've got Bockos Diamond, who you've said that you think is the best you've ever seen, I think I wouldn't be too far behind you in that assessment. And Cheap Sandwiches, who is a greyhound that I loved, and I picked him out quite early in the piece in the Irish Derby as well. So the fact that pair have got to the final, the fact that Liam has masterstroke of getting Deladi Dar back into that kind of English Derby mode,
a rhythm. There's a real rhythm to him.
Yeah,
he's just turning up, producing.
Yeah, Bombay Pat is another dog. He's so talented. We saw that when he won the maiden Derby in Shelburne. Solo Mio, as we said, he's come out of the Kirby. He was runner-up in the Kirby. And again, Peter Cronin's had so many Derby finalists. Wouldn't it be lovely to see him win it? And of course, Patrick's won it before with Thorn Falcon, and now he's got Droopy's Plunge. So it's a fantastic lineup, and I couldn't put my hand on my heart and say that dog can't win the Derby.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable when you consider only Solo Mio can claim a first Derby success for their trainer, and he's been knocking on the door. Obviously, Graham Holland is responsible for 3 of them. The master trainer, what he has done with Bockos Diamond through this competition, it's almost like he sort of just he's been holding the reins. He's been holding the reins. He just got the end since last Saturday. He just did that. Go on. Now is your time. He's like Paul Carberry riding a finish up the hill in Cheltenham or something like that. He's cheap sandwiches, Bombay Pat. And then, of course, you have Patrick, who you said, Droopy's Plunge and Trap 1 in the final. And again, the only finalist out of the laddie is there, bidding to give Liam a second success, a long overdue first success last year, because he had gone so close in the past with Ballymac Taz. I personally think Ballymac Vic was desperately unlucky in his Derby final. And that was the dog that kept bringing him back because of that experience with Ballymac Vic around Plough Lane. But it is just Peter Cronin, who hasn't won it before, and yet he's had a runner-up on 2 different occasions, as well as a third-place finisher. So, I said Croker's Prince, or it's Croker's Champ, not Croker's Prince. But yeah, the quality is there, and a great final to look forward to. A wonderful occasion, 15 races in all. It all kicks off pretty early, 5:44. I'll have to be getting from the airport pretty sharpish if I'm going to see the first race. If not, I'm not sure I'll be too concerned. The final's not to race 13. There's a lot of time in between races 1 and 13. 15 races in all. That's a marathon session. I'll be certainly ready for a drink come the end of racing. Not to say I won't have 1 or 2 between races. A great night to look forward to. But let's now focus on the final. £175,000 to the winner, but more than that, it's a part of history. It's a part of what you're in the sport for, is to win derbies, and the English Derby, of course, is right up there. And just look at the prices with Matchbook Betting Exchange here. You get Bockos Diamond in around 2.18. I'm surprised, PL, that he's not a shade shorter, given the trap draw on Monday, where you're all sort of clicking refresh, waiting for this trap draw. All of a sudden, it is going to be streamed live. We all watched it live, and Bockos Diamond got the stripes, and there was an audible cheer in the crowd. Obviously, Graham and Bev and Austin Thomas were all very happy with their draw, but there was also a few supporters in there who were like, yes, he's after getting trap 6. The laddie dad, the defending champion, in there around just under 4-1. Cheap sandwiches, that seems quite big. 6-1, 7 there. Solomeo, I think he's also pretty big. Droopy's Plunge at 16 and Bombay Pat at 17. Obviously, that's 2 very low percentages there. 106 at present. That'll be 100.5 or 101 come Saturday night. So there's still room for those prices to get better. Of course, there could be a flood of money for one or the other, but it's a cracking contest, PL. Listen, we both know they have the right favours. Just interesting how you see the rest of the market. What way did you price it?
Well, I haven't actually sat down and priced it up, because I think it's fairly much right. And I know a lot of people were getting onto Droopy's Plunge once they knew the draw. I think he was double that figure that's on there. But essentially, I think if you look at the form of the semi-finals, and you have to say it's in the moment, and you made a salient point regarding Graham Holland, and he knows how to train a Derby winner. He was actually quoted as saying, "You don't win the Derby in the first 2 rounds." And I think there's always opinion, isn't there? There's always a difference of opinion. People have got their different opinions. You remained firm with Bockos Diamond on our show last week, and will prove to be 100% correct. And he came to the fore, and he's come to the fore at the right time. I don't really see, if he repeats what he did in the semi-finals, and that obviously the occasion doesn't get to him, then I think he'll win, and I think he'll be a fantastic champion. He's a good winner for me on a personal level. Cheap Sandwiches has got the place money, so I'm happy with that. Deladi Dar would be a small winner for me. So, and obviously then you've got Solomeo, who is the young protagonist, Plunge, who's the strong dog, and Bombay Pat, who on his day, if he did come out the boxes, he could be up there with them. So it's a fantastic race. I'm quite happy with the work that I've done, in the anti-post market, and I'll be fairly confident on the night Bockos Diamond will do what we expect him to do.
Yeah, it's very much a similar chat to what we had before the Irish Greyhound Derby final, at Shelburne Park at the back end of last year, that if Bockos Diamond does it right, he will most likely come out on top. Now, he was a considerably shorter price in Ireland last year than he's going to be on Saturday night around Toaster. That's just down to the fact that it hasn't been all quite plain sailing for him. But I still stand by the fact that 2 or 3 of his runs in defeat were every bit as good as his runs in defeat were as good as his runs in victory. Because to lead and to head dogs like he did just was phenomenal. Like after the start he had made, he just showed so much class. And listen, don't get me wrong, he was worried out of it in a couple of races, but like this, just he's a Rolls Royce. And like I've said that about cheap sandwiches, and I said about the laddie da, and you could probably say it about each and every one of these. But I'm just looking at the last few, Derby champions, and there ain't too many of them coming from off the pace, PL. And that's why I just felt the laddie da from the draw with 2 Solomio edging off. I think the laddie da is going to need to do everything right to turn close enough. And I felt that he was probably a fraction short compared to the likes of cheap sandwiches and Solomio.
The thing is with the laddie da, we keep saying he finds a way. It's interesting because he was drawn in 2 in the semis, and Solomio was in trap 1. We can actually have a look at the head on of this. And Bombay Pat was in 5, incidentally. So it's worth looking at this because Solomio definitely moves off. And we're looking really for Solomio. His chance is to lead the final. So maybe we can take a look at the head on for the first semi-final and look at what Solomio does from the boxes, if possible.
Yeah, well, we'll keep talking, and when they get their hands on it, they'll throw it up there in front of us. Solomio was in 1, the laddie da was in 2, and Bombay Pat in 5. The important thing for the laddie da was that he missed it. If he had come away a bit better, he might have found himself really very much in a pincer movement, because if he had taken a bump, Droopy's booking would then have been edging in, and it could have been disastrous. It could have been disaster for both him and Solomio. As it was, Solomio did ping out of trap 1 and came across to the middle of the track. The laddie da in trap 2 then slipped onto the fence, and while he did have to worry about Droopy's book him into the opening corner, he's a big dog. He's been there, done that. He's 36 kilos. He knows how to handle himself. Like this isn't the fella you'd be worrying about in the night out. Like he could definitely handle himself. And he's intimidating enough as well, just to force other dogs to just think, oh, hang on, I'm not taking this lad on. No, as it is, like there's no small dogs in this race itself, but no, he is well able to handle himself. And because he had the inside line, he was able to turn close enough, and he charged into that third bend and took over. It was a brilliant run. We don't seem to be getting the head on it at present, but yeah, Solomio is an issue for the laddie da. There's no question about it, because the laddie da may well break a bit better from trap 3, and if he does, he's going to have to avoid Solomio on those first strides. Here we are. We see them 1, 2, and 5. We are looking at Solomio's in 1, in 5, or in 2 is the laddie da, and 5 Bombay Pat. Talk us through it here, PL.
Yeah, well, the thing is, Ian, is that one Solomio gets a good start. That's initially. So he sees clear daylight and he moves off right into a good lane 3, 3.5 maybe. And you'll see Bookham just edged into the laddie da. Now watch him behind. The laddie da pushing his way through, and you can see on the outside in trap 5 there was Bombay Pat. So Bombay Pat edged off as well. If you look at him in the orange, he did move off, but it's just that tenacity from the laddie da. Now, because Solomio got clear, Ian, then the laddie da had a bit of room, or he might have had a bit of room to operate, but he didn't, because Bookham came across him. Now, if you can imagine, if the same thing happens and Solomio goes up, maybe the laddie da could turn even closer.
The only issue with that is that he could have cheap sandwiches Bockos Diamond gone as well on the outside. As good as Solomio went up on this occasion, we know he did a 395 like Bockos Diamond, but I've no doubt from that 395 section to the opening corner, Bockos Diamond is then taking probably another half length, 3/4 of a length on that rival to that point. Plus, he's also running the crispest of clean bends. Like he just runs like he's on rails, and you're talking in a situation where it's not just Solomio the laddie that has to cling on to this week. It's also cheap sandwiches and Bockos Diamond.
Yeah, but the point is, Ian, is that Solomio again is another dog that did it right in the semis at the start. And there's no dangers. He's got nice early pace, and he does move off. So if you can imagine, he breaks from 2 and he probably just edges off. He's probably not losing as much ground. He could even do a 393 because of that. He's going in a better angle. But I think the key to it is for Deladidar to win, he needs to get himself in a pitch. The only danger, if he does break, there's a question. If he does break, Ian, Deladidar, if he breaks, would Solomio stay that little bit straighter because he knows that Deladidar is there? Because I have to say, I think even when I was worried about him from 2 in the quarterfinals, he didn't move off quite as much because there was a dog on his outside. And again, he could be learning. I think we've mentioned this about cheap sandwiches. He's moved off. Last 2, he stayed straighter than he has.
I think then you come into a different situation, whereas if Solomio is forced to stay that inside line going into the opening corner, which he may well do if Deladidar pops out, I don't think Deladidar can outpace Solomio into the opening corner. No, and if you've kept Solomio closer to the fence, there is also a chance of him moving off more on the opening corner than he did the other night when he was able to swing back in from 4 or 3.5. Whereas if he is in trap 2 going into the opening bend, and if Deladidar is leaning in them, he may well be even short. He may be even closer to the fence because the odds are they will lead up Droopy's plunge. Solomio can definitely run off at that point, which is a concern. That's a concern for everything. That's not just a concern for Deladidar, because you know yourself, Concertina, that could affect all the dogs on the outside. And that's one of the avenues in which Droopy's plunge can really, really come into the equation. Because if Solomio's on the inside of 3 or 4 dogs into the opening corner, given his inexperience and his tendency just to move off, obviously we've seen in the last couple of weeks when he had room, he moved off into space that was there before coming back in. But if he hasn't had that ability to move out before swinging back in, he may just swing off. And that becomes a concern. Deladidar either needs to ping out in front of him or step out behind him, and that's my view. I feel he needs to be. I think he needs daylight in Solomio, be it in front of him or behind him.
Yeah, because if Deladidar does crack out a length in front of Solomio, then Solomio will be he'll be going out to look for room, and that would be a disaster for him. He needs to break a length in front like he did in the semi-final. Solomio, he needs to break in front of Deladidar, and then I think Deladidar uses his kind of experience and his guile and his wherewithal to find a passage in behind. And again, then he's looking what he needs to lead Droopy's plunge. Obviously, Deladidar in behind, so that is going to be an interesting scenario. I'm still convinced that Solomio could be up there and maybe cause Bockos Diamond for something to think about. Because, again, I asked you the question about Bockos Diamond and cheap sandwiches. And again, a length and a quarter he needed and a length and a quarter he got, because that was just the daylight to get across. Now, if Solomio takes one and Bockos Diamond works hard to get past cheap sandwiches, there could be a bit of a disputing going on at the first bend. So for Bockos Diamond to win this derby, he needs to break clean, and he needs to use his early pace to get clear of cheap sandwiches and Bombay Pat for that matter, and Solomio.
Yeah. Let's take a look at the second head-on from the second semi-final last week. It's probably not as important. Like the two we really are looking at here are 5 and 6. Obviously, there was plenty more happening in behind. Droopy's plunges in trap 3 for anyone that wants to pay too much attention to him. But listen, you just need to know that Droopy's plunge is where he wants to be, and he won't be a major player in the early stages. Barry takes a flying start, but even then he's going to struggle to hold him into the opening corner. So just keep an eye on 5 cheap sandwiches and 6 Bockos Diamond.
Yeah, as I said to you, Bockos Diamond, I think, actually edged off from the boxes there. So he's gone off. I think initially cheap sandwiches did, but now watch him coming in. There's actually a bigger distance between cheap sandwiches in 5 and Bockos Diamond in 6. And Bockos Diamond has stayed wide until he gets that first bend, and then he comes across.
The good ones find a way, PL. Like this is a dog where 6 months ago,
early pace.
6 months ago, he may have tried to cut the corner, but like the reason they're so good is because they have a brain. They have a true racing line, and they just know when to move in, when to move out. Like Bockos Diamond would not normally step right like that, but he sensed that Cheap Sandwiches would come out beside him, and why not just go into this little bit of extra space? Gives me a run into the opening corner, and then I can go whoosh, and that's exactly what he did. Like, look how comfortably he leads Cheap Sandwiches around that corner. Like, it's frighteningly good. Like, Cheap Sandwiches the previous week had come away only okay and had cleared Droopies Aladdin and Solomio into the opening corner. And here's Bockos Diamond breaking alongside him and then showing this most devastating early speed to get around him on the outside. This is the Bockos Diamond that we had seen in Shelbourne Park, PL, and we were hoping that everyone would get a chance to see as well. Certainly I was, because social media was starting to really tick me off. All these doubters here and questioning what I was talking about. This is what I'm talking about. This is just canine perfection when he's at his best. And if he traps like that, I'm not sure he can be beaten.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I totally agree, and that's why, you know, I backed him at the start of the competition, Ian, and people said, "Oh, well, 11-2, are you mad in a derby?" But that was such as the belief, as I said to you at the time. I was with you. I was at the front of the train, and I think that he's a special dog, and as I say, if he repeats what he did in the semis, he can go on to lead this race, and that's the place to be in a final, as you quite rightly said. I do respect the chances of Delighted Are, because I worry about him if you turn too close, and of course with Droopy's Plunge. But I don't see Solomio back running him. I don't see Bombay Pat back running him. I don't see Cheap Sandwiches back running him. So long as he does what he did, I think he'll repeat it, and I think he'll win.
One thing we haven't really touched on, we sort of did get a brief mention, was the fact that Bockos Diamond looked so much stronger the other evening. You know, his run home, he wasn't stopping. He was still in front of the pickup. Just seems to be strengthening up. And, you know, that sort of, again, lays credence to what we were saying, that Graham didn't leave this dog. You know, he left him with a little bit of work to do. You know, he had that much faith in the Greyhound that he knew that he was going to win a derby. He was going to have to leave him with a bit of work to do. And, you know, he definitely strengthened up. Again, he was down He was down, you know, only 0.3 of a kilo, but like he could be down 0.2 or 3 of a kilo again. And who's to say he won't even be stronger? Have we looked ahead to the forecast? Like there's no planned deluge or anything, PL, is there?
No, I mean, no. Well, I'm quite happy with my lot in actual fact. But I know what you're saying. When you look at if you're that confident, Ian, then you can only be looking in behind at 1 and 3 to fill the places. Realistically, although you know I said that Cheap Sandwiches could turn second and stay second. I think Cheap Sandwiches was about 2.5 lengths behind Bockos Diamond at the third turn, and as you say, it was a length and 3/4 at the line. So where
it's amazing the mirroring image here now compared to the Irish Derby, right? Remember we had the argument with, and Harry was with us, and you said Cheap Sandwiches turn second, be second, and like I sort of said, I think Callaway Kinnegar might pick him up. Who is Callaway Kinnegar's little brother? Droopy's Plunge, who's in Trap 1, who will be trying to do the same thing. I personally think Callaway Kinnegar is a more talented greyhound. I am really struggling to make a case for Droopy's Plunge, although Solomio is his greatest hope. There's no question about it. I can see why his price is considerably shortened, because I thought 28 to 1 was a bit of an insult. I'm not tempted in 14, 16 to 1. I must admit, because I think one of the other 5 is going to get loose. And I don't think any of them in a derby final on a track that'll be going great, you know, absolutely foot to the floor. This is your one night. I can't see how he can come from, and it could well have to come from 6 lengths behind, and I just don't think that's possible.
Yeah, it depends what he does at the start, Ian. But you know, I did speak to Patrick yesterday, and I said to him, when Thorn Falcon, it slipped my mind. What was the name of the dog that came out flying out of the boxes out of trap forward? It was Clara Lion.
Clara Lion, yeah.
And he was a big
I used to wake up in a cold sweat. We had 4 finalists that year. We were 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. Do you know what I mean? Like I had a couple of dogs back for good money, and these 2 dogs came out like scalded cats. Clara Lion absolutely rocketed it out.
He did, and that what I'm saying is it's not impossible for Plunge to go wallop and put himself in the race. And if you think that Solomio, Bombay Pat, Cheap Sandwiches, and Bockos Diamond have all got to lead to win, then he might put himself in with a chance. So it's all what happens at the start. Naturally, that goes without saying. But that's what I think. That's what makes this final so intriguing. I know you're double confident about Bockos Diamond, and as I say, he's my biggest winner. I have the confidence. I just want him to do what he did last week. And you're right about Graham Holland. He knows how to train a Derby winner. And my missus always says the same thing. That you need to have the dog, but you need to have the man at the end of the lead that knows how to win a 6-round competition. Yeah. Not a 3 or 4 round competition, a 6-round competition.
One thing we do have to mention is like the greyhounds in question, the laddie da. It's going to be his second Derby final. He's been there, done that. He was also a semi-finalist. God knows how he didn't make the Irish Derby final in his puppy year. That still haunts me to this day. Bombay Pat, he didn't get to a Derby final, but he ran an unbelievable race in the Derby semi-final last year at Shelbourne Park, and he has enough experience now that you wouldn't be too concerned about him. Cheap Sandwiches, obviously Irish Derby runner-up, Bockos Diamond, Derby champion. Solomio is an issue in a sense where the Kirby final night's a big night, but he would never have experienced the noise and the atmosphere that's going to happen with a Derby final. And like, let's say if this race was run 2 weeks ago, good crowd and toaster, but nothing extraordinary. Okay, I would back Bockos Diamond at 4-6. Right, but the Derby final with all the extra noise, all the extra factors, and by noise I don't mean actual physical noise. I mean just everything else that's going on. Just it's just not quite as simple as
hullabaloo.
Just everything that's going on. It can have a different effect in different greyhounds. And the fact that the laddie da, Cheap Sandwiches, and Bockos Diamond can say, well, we've been there on the big stage. Shelbourne Park Derby final night was absolutely bananas. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So they can say we've been there, done that, and it's not going to phase us. Where a little concerned perhaps with the likes of Solomio because of his youth and inexperience. But by all accounts, he's looked fairly professional. He's looked like he's taken it in stride. Droopy's plunges, more than enough experience. Like he's 23 races down his card, and that's probably not even including the 4 or 5 he had in Ireland or more. And then Bombay Pat, like he's been there on big nights at Shelbourne Park. He was there Night of Stars at Shelbourne Park and was a brilliant winner of the 575. So it wouldn't be too concerned about him either. But it can play into the occasion, and it is worth keeping that in mind. Especially if you're going to be going like gung ho, charging into the market 3 minutes before the off. Just remember, it is a Derby final, and strange things can happen in a Derby final.
Yeah, and wasn't Swords Rex was hot favourite, wasn't he? He fluffed his lines on the night, and he was a Kirby winner.
Yeah.
So, and Gaytime Nemo won it. Was that Gaytime Nemo's year?
Yeah, it was Gaytime Nemo. Yeah, he was the outsider of Graham Holland's 3.
Yeah.
So maybe that's an omen for Bombay Pat. Who's to say? And another thing I mentioned, Bay Point Harvey last week. Was it last week or was it last week that he charged the boxes? No, it was in the quarters. He charged the boxes from the inside. And all of a sudden, the dynamic 4-star, who I would never have considered as a lightning starter, is gone. He's way and gone. If something charges boxes, it just throws it wide open again. You know what I mean? And like these dogs are going to be going for their lives. The connection's going to have them absolutely fully tuned. So there is a chance of 1 or 2 of them just sort of getting a bit, bouncy in the boxes, and anything can happen. And that can often get something like the not the normal fast starter out of the boxes. No, I think Bombay Pat is a waiter anyway. I think he waits for the lids to open rather than going at them. You don't see any real sort of bobbing from him. But who's to say? Who's to say that if there's enough noise, he might go forward, and he might be going forward at the right time. So just don't ignore any greyhound in this contest. It's one of those races where you can certainly make claims for each and every one of them. But in a cleanly run race, if they put their best foot forward, you'd assume the Bockos Diamond will get first run, and that's probably enough.
And Ian, obviously, we're doing this on the Matchbook Exchange podcast. What price do you think that Bockos Diamond will go off at?
If it had been an Irish Derby type campaign, he would be going off considerably shorter than he is. Even if there was opposition for him the last week or two, I think people would realize. But the fact that it's toast, I think he might still be just two, in around two, maybe just under 198, 196, that sort of way. I personally would have him in around 4 to 5, 8 to 11. That'd be my sort of view. Now, obviously, the exchange is different because you will be betting to 100 and 100 plus minuscule amounts. Like it's going to be probably less than 101% when it comes to the off. The one I think will be a bigger price is the La Di Da. I think Solomio. Funny enough, I actually think there'll be money for Solomio. I would not be surprised on the night of Solomio's disputing second favoritism, if not second favors. Chief Sandwiches will always have his supporters, so I think he'll be pretty solid. I think the other two will. I think they. Juby's Plunge is a weird one because if you didn't get on the 28 to 1, you're unlikely to back him now. But yes, those that weren't even concerned about it at the time may just go, well, he's in trap 1. If there's any traffic, he could be the one. He could be shorter. Like Bombay Pat could end up being a stupid price, like 20. Like that wouldn't surprise me in the slightest.
It could.
Yeah. I do think the one likely drifter is probably the La Di Da, and that's not to say he can't win. Like he's an unbelievable greyhound, but just if he had been reversed with Solomio, it's a very different final. And if it had been the other way around, I think Bockos Diamond might have been a fraction bigger. Chief Sandwich is probably still a similar enough price, but it would have been a different betting market if Solomio and the La Di Da were the other way around. And I think that was the key to the draw, where the two of them were drawing in relation to each other. Let's say if Bombay Pat had been drawn in 5, I think Bockos Diamond would be clear odds on. It's amazing how a few inches can make such a difference. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And we've now seen with our own 2 eyes, and the beauty of that head on, that the draw is the same as the semi-final between Cheap Sandwiches and Bockos Diamond, and actually it was perfect for him. So if it's perfect for him again, and as you say, if that man that trains him has just got another length or so, and he does the 28-40, and we'll all be lauded in once more. So yeah, bring it on. I can't wait.
Yeah. Once again, our thanks to the Guns of the Longs podcast for providing us with those wonderful pictures, and indeed for providing us all with wonderful pictures over the last few weeks. It's made such a difference. The idea of having to watch this on a sort of just a bland sort of betting platform, and don't get me wrong, it's a great service for us. We can see every race live across the board, but to have presentation and to give it to the little bit of razzmatazz that it deserves, we are so grateful. And well done to all involved in Greyhound Racing, Greyhound Racing UK for all the backup, all the content that's been provided. And I think the Derby is much the better for it. There are 15 races, of course. We can't even get into the rest of them. I just know that the Durando is the last race on the card, which breaks my heart because I'll probably be watching it like that. But I can't wait to see Mongi's Wild in action once again. What an unbelievable star stayer he is. I can imagine his price will be something similar. Is there anything on the card, PL? I'm just not sure you've even looked at it that would just catch your eye a little bit.
No, I've actually, I can't get the trumpet out yet, can I? But I've backed in a line bet. I've done Vagar, Romeo Steele, and the sprinter as well. The Richard Rees dog. Yeah.
Shadow Storm.
Yeah, Shadow Storm.
Yeah, he looks a machine, doesn't he?
He does. So, and he's got his draw. I think Vagar, I was talking to Mark yesterday, I think Vagar will be perfectly happy in trap 6 if he repeats what she did in the semis. And Romeo Steele's flying to the turn. So, yeah. So, they were the dogs I was interested in some of the supporting races.
Yeah. Errol Boris in the opener at huge prices. Again, I backed him at 33 to 1 last week, beaten 4th, beaten 5 and 3 parts. And I'm going, if you got a little run around that opening corner, you might have been closer. He's one I'm sort of falling for. If he's 12 to 1 or bigger, maybe have a small little nibble, maybe look at him in the place market. But it's a wonderful card to look forward to. Again, congratulations to anybody's got this far in the Star Sports TRC English Greyhound Derby. My thanks to PL for all his contributions over the last few weeks. We've thoroughly enjoyed it as always. We get to shoot the breeze, and you come along and listen to us, and some give out and some don't. To those that don't give out, thank you, and keep watching. Hopefully we'll be back for the Irish Greyhound Derby later in the year. Don't forget to sign up to Matchbook Betting Exchange Pod 50. Enter the code Pod 50, £50 in free bets after you've had £50 worth of bets. And again, the Matchbook Track Club, well worth your while. Bet over £30 over the week between Monday and Thursday on markets that are settled before Thursday, and including one bet of a tenner or more, and you will get back 2 free fiver bets on a Friday before 12 p.m. You can't ask more than that. You can turn that tenner into a couple of hundred perhaps. That's the key to success. But my thanks once again to PL. If you are going to Toaster on Saturday, myself and PL will be there. We will be at the bar together, arms around each other at about 10:15. You can come up to us, even offer to buy us a drink. You never know. If things go well, we might buy you one. But that's it from us here at the Matchbook Betting Exchange. Don't forget to follow Matchbook, like and subscribe. Check out Matchbook Insights. And again, the Track Club, and join up if you're not a member. Well worth your while. That's it, though. My thanks again. Thank you for being with us through this journey. Best of luck to all sets of connections in the Star Sports TRC English Greyhound Derby at Toaster on Saturday night. If you can be there, do it. It's going to be an occasion not to be missed. We'll see you next time.